Welcome back. It's the first final mile of 2025, so Happy New Year. Welcome back, everybody, for another good session here where we answer all your questions. Please make sure to share us with your friends. Send us your questions through the website, freight360.net. Got a lot of content there as well, including the Freight Broker Basics course, and you can see all of our sponsors in the description box or the show notes to help support this channel. We'll get right into it. Our first question today. I've got my MC number, but should I wait until my MC number and DOT number become 3 to 6 months old before calling prospects? Hell no. That's my answer. I get the idea of like wanting to let your authority age a little bit. But it's going to probably take you 3 to 6 months before you get good at prospecting and actually get some good people that you're building relationships with. And honestly, like if you meet the right customer and you guys hit it off and you're knowledgeable of their commodity that they're shipping, they probably don't care how long your authority's been around for. They want to know, do I trust this person? Do I feel good about entrusting this person with handling my transportation of my business? Because your authority could be 40 years old and they can just hate you, and the age doesn't matter at all. So that's my big take on it. Is I would start dialing right away, building relationships, and because I think that matters a lot more than your authority age. The carrier side is a little bit different. You know, some carriers and factory companies are not going to want to preferably work with a brand new authority. But what are your thoughts there?
Agreed. I think the biggest part of prospecting is that like it takes time to get good at it. Like it's just like anything else in life. Like you've got to spend a lot of time doing it to learn the objections, to learn the needs of the industry. Those things change. And even when you get somebody that can talk to you, like again, average sales cycle is probably 3 to 4 months, give or take. I mean, depending on who you're talking to right now. So I think like the earlier you can start, the better off you are, for sure.
Yep. All right, next question. For DAT, this is actually a comment from the interview with Datton Trucker Tools. For DAT, it sounds as if ELD tracking is being implemented instead of or in combination with Trucker Tools app tracking. How does a broker utilize these services? Even the Reefer Temps setting is a great tool to have for a broker who wants to stay in tune with their freight, setting you apart from the competition. So it's super ironic. Literally in the last hour, I got an email from Trucker Tools. We were asking them how to set this up on behalf of one of our carriers. So I have the actual answer of how they do it, but I'll talk on a more broad level. So one of the risks or potential areas of fraud in any cell phone tracking, and I've had it happen before, and I think, Ben, you brought it up on the interview, is like people could just forward your text to somebody else, and that person turns the tracking on. Like we had a guy who literally he pinged in Azerbaijan, and I was like, what? Like,
I remember that.
You're not.
I think I used that example probably in that episode.
It was Trucker Tools at the time. This is a few years ago, but it was Trucker Tools. They just forwarded the link. So what we've done at Pierce specifically is we're really pushing towards using the ELD version. Like just about everybody has ELDs now, so there's really no excuse to not just go the ELD route. Unless if you're ELD exempt, I get it, but like. If you have ELDs, like it's the driver usually prefers to not have their phone tracked. They'd rather have the truck tracked. So you could just literally, you could still send the request out the same way. And if they have their ELD integrated into Trucker Tools, it just pulls the location of Trucker Tools. So I'll pull the email up since I just had it here. But it says, yeah, so there's an ELD page on the Trucker Tools site. The carrier can proceed with, let's see. Yeah, they basically fill out one additional thing when they're on the Trucker Tools site to agree, and there's a link that they can integrate their ELD. It's the same thing with like highway, where like if on a highway a carrier wants to integrate their ELD for verification purposes or location purposes, all you do is like you literally just put in your username and password of your ELD provider, and it allows the
Yeah.
connection. The same way if you're connecting your bank to any like PayPal or Venmo or whatever, it's the same exact concept. But I'm a big fan of the ELD.
I love it.
Integrated tracking, because like you don't have to worry about a driver that can't figure out how to turn on location services on their phone
Or GPS issues. Or just service
whatever
went
the
out
case
because of
might be. And you'll still have like there's dead spots in the country, and that happens for cell phone or ELD. It is what it is, but it still records internally and gets updated. So, big fan. So yeah, there is a, let's see if I can pull the website up here. It's literally, it's truckertools.com/ELD-carrier-integration.
I set it up too. I did it recently with one of my tanker carriers. It's super easy. Carrier, basically all they do is log into their ELDs and connect it the way you connect a bank account to something. Like, it's safe, it's secure. And then all the carrier's got to do is give you the tractor number for the loads, and it automatically shows you where they are. So it's way more efficient. It's way more consistent. And to the other question about like reefer temp settings, like it is a fantastic thing that when you can do this and have this set up. It really only works though when you've got carrier relationships, because it's very few and far between you're going to get a carrier on one load that is going to integrate their ELDs to move a load for you. They've got to be doing business with you and have some relationship usually for them to be willing to do that, because it does take a little bit of time. But when you do have that, like that is a huge advantage for your customers too. Because like you can tell them like, hey, we do have ELD tracking. We can track reefer settings on this. Like to me, that is a giant value add and a differentiator, because most brokerages aren't doing that.
Yeah. So I guess to circle back and answer the question, DAT is not replacing the Trucker Tools tracking.
No.
Trucker Tools itself has already had both cell phone and ELD tracking. So now that's part of the...
And they're going to continue operating as a separate company. At least they announced and talked to us about it on the show. So like you shouldn't see any changes there. And it really is a great tool. Like it's super easy. And you can send that to your shippers. The shippers can see that information through the link.
We use it all the time. Like when we send out a tracking link for Trucker Tools from our TMS, there's a spot to enter in like, I think it says literally shipper email. But you can put whoever you want, and you can say send them updates every 2 hours or 8 hours or whatever. Yep. Do you remember DAT like kind of dabbled with their own tracking like 4 or 5 years ago?
I don't.
And it was free to try. I don't think it ever went anywhere, and I think that's one of the real benefits of the Trucker Tools acquisition is like, why recreate the wheel when we can just join forces with someone who's mastered it? So
yeah,
good deal. All right, next question. What do you usually do as a carrier when you don't get payment from the broker? The broker has 60 claims against their bond. So this we were talking about bond off air earlier, but don't take any more loads from that broker. Stop the bleeding to begin with. Next up, file on the bond. You're probably bottom of the totem pole, not going to get paid. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot you can do besides go direct to the shipper.
That was what I was going to ask you. Have you seen scenarios where the carrier then goes after the shipper for payment? Because I believe there's recourse there. I'm not an attorney, but I think it's possible.
I haven't. I'll give you the closest example that I saw. Guy had his own brokerage, went out of business. His bond got chewed up. Becomes an agent. The carrier, one of the last carriers that hadn't gotten paid, finds out where he's working now, goes to that brokerage and says, this guy owes me money. And the brokerage is basically like, hey, agent, like, find a way to pay this guy or, like, we're letting you go. Like, you're not going to tarnish my name. And he got it worked out. They didn't go, the carrier did not go to the shipper, though. And
like
that's
in a double broker load, they do.
What's that?
Well, in a double broker load, if you pay the wrong carrier, they can go at the shipper. Yep. So I'm like, if you didn't pay the carrier, that's why I want to ask. I want to get an attorney on here to ask some of these like very specific transportation questions.
We're gonna have Leffler on here at some point this year, right?
Yeah, and I'm really curious because at least my understanding of the way freight law works is that like the beneficial cargo owner owes money to the carrier that provided the service to them,
Yeah.
regardless of what the broker
Yep.
paid, didn't pay, or got paid. So my thought is that you could go after the shipper for this, but I'm definitely not an attorney, and I have not seen that happen, at least.
I think you can. We'll definitely have that discussion with an attorney, but that's how the law reads as far as I can see it. So, all right, next question. So this is from a carrier, right? I actually love this question. So you brokers are charging carriers service fees for comm checks to pay your customers lumper. How is this the carrier's responsibility? Can someone explain the logic? All right, this goes for comm check, EFS, any type of wire advance for a lumper. Okay. Now listen, if you're a carrier and you want a fuel advance or a quick pay and there's a fee involved, hey, it kind of comes with the territory. There's a fee.
Yes.
If
You're
it's a
getting
lumper,
service.
right? The lumper is benefiting the customer, the shipper, or the receiver, whoever the lumper is happening, right? If you don't know what a lumper is, it's basically dock hands that are workers, third-party workers on the dock that will load or unload the truck. It's very common in produce. Okay, so customer, you send a truck in, and they go load your truck or unload your truck. All right, you got to pay these people on the spot though. So one option is the carrier pays them and gets reimbursed by the broker with their line haul pay. Like maybe it's $100. So I'm a carrier. I send my $100 receipt in to the broker. The broker pays me my money plus the $100 extra. The other option, and it's somewhat common, is to get an advance. Like, hey, I need a comm check or an EFS advance or whatever advance service you're going to use. For this lumper, it's $100. And all right, great. Here's the $100. Well, there's a 3% fee that comes out, so you're only getting $97. And it's like, why as a carrier do I have to eat that? And I totally agree.
You should.
So here's my take on it is, as a broker, just pay them the amount including the fee. Like if it's going to cost
you can do that, by the way. I was going to set this up a couple weeks ago, talk to EFS and CommCheck, and both of them allow the broker on a per transaction basis to either charge the carrier or eat the fee themselves.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder. So
At
we
least
sent
that's
them
what
out.
they said.
No, I believe it. I totally believe it because the same thing goes with like when we were talking with what's the factor company we were talking
Haul pay.
with?
I can do that on Haul pay too. I can push 50%, 70%, 75%, or all of it on the broker to pay any quick pay fee.
Yep. We send them out through our TMS, so we don't. I don't have the ability like when I send it out to make a decision. It's probably it was probably predetermined when it was integrated, but if you're a broker and you're making your carrier eat those fees, I would challenge you to think about if that makes sense or not, because for years carriers have been eating that fee, and it's very rarely do they complain about it. But when they do, it's totally valid, 100% valid. Yeah, 100%. Like it's the customer's request.
Right.
Whose customer is it? It's the broker's customer.
Brokers.
So, Mr. Broker or Mrs. Broker, if you want to use that customer, or if you're going to service that customer and they have that kind of thing, either ask them to eat the fee or you eat the fee. I would suggest you don't be putting it on your carrier, because otherwise, like the alternative, like I said, is have the carrier pay it up front and ask to get reimbursed. Well, our last question was just, what do you do when the broker doesn't pay you? So, like,
right.
Yeah.
And also, like, I remember, and again, don't hold me to this, but I could have swore that when I worked at a larger company and it was automated, like you said, for like the CommCheck or the EFS, like we would just up the fee. Like if there was a 3% fee and $100, we'd just pay them like $108. We'd just do the math and be like $106. So they got more plus the fee.
Yep.
Like there is really there's no excuse for making a carrier pay a fee for a service your shipper and your customer required that carrier to do. It's not their fault and not their responsibility. The shipper doesn't want to hire somebody on staff to unload trucks and wants to outsource it to a third party that needs paid in cash.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. Exactly right. Good questions. Keep sending them our way. Any final thoughts, Ben?
No, but I did think of the rest of the quote I was trying to struggle for in that episode, which is it said, if you do the same things next year, you'll have another year. If you change your habits, you'll have a new year, right? And like
Yeah.
to me, I think that really resonates. Like, do the same thing you did last year, might as well be 12 more months of 2024. You change your habits and what you're doing on a daily basis, you're far more likely to have a new or a different year than you did before.
That's good. Love it. All right. Well, give us your Henry Ford quote.
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
I couldn't sign off without hearing that as my cue line here. And until next time, go Bells.